Welcome to volume 3 of my D110 set for the Modwave. Incidentally, there's a wave set coming soon. So the D110 was the Roland module. You can see it up there. Came out in 1988, 87, 88, and was a multi-timbral synth module based on a sort of cut down version of the D50, Roland's legendary D50. So synthesis really changed around that time. You went from the DX, you went from analog sounds to the DX7 type sounds, and the D50 introduced this concept of really small samples and then analog type sounds, although done in the digital realm. So the reason behind that was because you wanted small samples because memory was so expensive. So if you take some examples like this one, it sounds really realistic, especially for the time, because it's using that initial sample, which gives you the realistic effect. And then for the longer part, it's using a traditional sort of ADSR type analog. And then for the longer part, it's using a subtractive synthesis to get that effect. So it means we get some really good, interesting sounds out of it. And it was a great module. Like I said, it was multi-timbral. So you could run it from your Steinberg 32 or whatever it was at the time on your Atari ST, and you could send MIDI on different MIDI channels and it would respond separately, so that it could receive on the different MIDI channels and have different sounds on each MIDI channel. So you could send drums, you could send your lead, you could send a pad, the bass, all at the same time from your sequencer, and then capture the output of the D10 or the D110, and that would be your complete performance. In the days before a DAW and sort of recording it all on a computer. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate some of the sounds and explain a bit behind them, and also at the end of the video, I'll talk about how you get these into your Modwave. Some of these, all of these are the factory sounds, apart from the ones that say custom patch, and that's where I've used some of the factory waveforms to create new sounds. So let's have a listen to the first one, and this is called Sawteeth. Which is a kind of synth brass type sound. Sounds quite nice. And then we've got a couple of Saxes. So these Saxes don't sound like sort of you would get now or a Rompler type saxophone. But for the time, they were pretty good because it used this idea of synthesis. And then you've got some effects as well, sound effects, which I've included in this collection. The Seashore, which I always liked. Then this one I demonstrated earlier on. So that is a definite classic Roland D series sound. And this one I actually done a split with some of the other sounds as well. So we'll come to that one later. But I really like that one. These are all using single samples as well. So if I go into the sample editor or into the librarian, you can see that I'm using just that one sample. So you can layer then that with other samples as well. So or wavetables or however you want, and I'm using a single layer as well. So you can see you could use 4 of these samples at the same time, or any combination of that. So there's a lot you can do with them. Sho and Sitar. Doesn't really sound like a sitar, but while they're not sounding exactly like what they're supposed to be always, they have got their own unique sort of characteristics. So we've got slap bass 1 and slap bass 2. And I guess you could arpeggiate that. sounds quite good when it's arpeggiated. It sounds quite electronic. This one, slapping, is quite interesting. This is what I was going back to earlier, saying about the D series having those short sampled, and that's what you can hear when you hear sample bass 2 or slap bass 2. You hear that initial one with a subtracted synthesis element. That's just the slap sound on its own. You could combine that with an electronic bass sound and create sort of that effect. We've got slide bass. I quite like that, and you could soften the attack a bit on that as well, I think. Get rid of that click. So what I'll do, I will save that so that when you download these from thedigitalifestyle.com, I will have already done that. We've got soft brass. Essentially, I've looped these where appropriate, manually looped them, so they're not always perfect, but they're all looped, and if they're one shot, I've set them as one shot as well. So this one is the soft brass sound which I just played, but then I've split it onto the 2 oscillators, detuned them slightly to give them a bit of a bigger sound. Now, this is one of my favourite sounds from the D series. I used to have a D20 a long time ago, so when I recently got the D-110, it sort of took me right back. Soundtrack was one of my favourite. All these sounds are about 3 seconds sample length. I didn't want to use too much memory in about 4 zones. With Soundtrack, I went for 6 zones and a longer sample time, so really to get that effect, but it is a really nice sound. It's a great sound, that one. And what I've done with that one is the next one here is I've created a split. So I've split those 2 on there. So really gives you that D110 flavour. Okay, space horn. So you can hear the space bit and space war, which is a nice effect. Oh, you got the explosion at the end. We've got square solo, which is a square wave. And steel drum. Which actually is quite a nice sound. Then we come to the string sounds. They weren't the most realistic strings, certainly not the string section, but they sound good in their own way. So a mellower sound. That's actually quite a nice sound, that one. Then we've got some basses. Sounds very much like the slap bass. This is a sort of synth bass sound. So this is the synth bass sound I remember from my D-20 years. So I've added a bit of delay on there. It's got a nice bass sound, and bass 3. Of course, you can use the analyzer to look at those. Back to the basses, synth bass 4. Another slap bass. And the Synth Chime, I like this one. And I've turned the arpeggiator on to get that effect. And we've got some lead sound. Quite a nice synth lead sound. A bit of a softer one. Lead 3 and lead 4. That is more square. Mallet. Nice sound. And Syn Piano. If you remember from, if you've watched the video or downloaded set 2, I think it's got the acoustic, well, set 1's got the acoustic pianos in. They're not brilliant. This one, again, it's not brilliant, but it's playable. Tech snare, that's one I've used in one of the custom patches as well. So I'll demonstrate that one shortly. And telephone, nice sound effect. That's the. We've got thunderstorms. Which I've added a bit of reverb. And timbales. Sounds quite good actually with the reverb on there. And Timbales. We've got a timpani. Which actually sound really good on them. Certainly for the time. Touch piano, I mentioned earlier about the pianos. I actually quite like this one. Because it's touch piano, it's velocity sensitive on the D-110. So I've added a bit of extra velocity sensitivity to the sound, just when you're controlling it on here as well. Then we've got touch piano, which I've made the amplitude velocity sensitive. It's a nice piano sound, as I mentioned earlier. It's the pianos aren't the best on this. We've got another sound effect triangle, and we've got a couple of trombones. Quite sympathetic, but usable in their own way. It's almost synth like that one, isn't it? A couple of trumpets. used sparingly. They're quite nice, and a tuba, which sounds very much like the trumpet. It actually sounds like a nice synth brass sound. And tuba bell. Quite a nice little lowdown. You'd have to have been born earlier than probably the 80s to understand the sound of a typewriter. But there you go. And Velo Brass. So again, like the touch piano one, I've made this velocity sensitive by also controlling the cutoff as well as the amplitude volume with it. So this is very busy. It's one of the ones I used to demo quite often. Just look at this amazing synth, and that is those sequences, those little samples put into a sequence. But it's in one sample in this case. We've got a vibe. It's quite a soft, light one, isn't it? Even lower down. But quite usable sound, that one. And a vibe string. Got a couple of violins. And then a couple which I do like. Voxy Men, which is a male vocal sound. And then there was Voxy Women. And then what I've done is I've combined those to Voxy People and used the A and B to have both of those in there. So you've got that combination there. And we've got a nice warm bell. That's a really nice sound. That would layer well with sort of pad sound as well, wouldn't it? Like this one, the warm pad. So what I could do is got the warm pad on there, oscillator 2. I'm going to put in the bell. We just had, and bring them together. So what I've just done there is, so now I've got one bell and one pad, and I'm going to call this original naming of bell pad. And that'll be in the collection. Water bells. Show quite what you do with those. Whistle. And whistler. It's not the X-Files sound. Not far off, is it? You can hear the looping every now and again. And wind bells. Sound quite nice digital sound. And then we've got cross mod strings. We've got xylophone. And then those custom patches I was talking about earlier on. So this is one that is called Filter Pad. So what I've done with this one is we've got two warm pad samples, and I've used the filter and a filter envelope. So you can hear the loopings there, but it's quite effective, that one. It's not clicky or anything. And this one I call not a D10, so it's D10, not a D10. But it doesn't really sound like a D10, but it's actually using a D10 warm pad and a D10 or D110 tech snare, and then just a kick as well. So I've used this a few times, these techniques, but on the layer A, we've got the warm pad sound, just a single oscillator. Using the motion sequencer, and these points are triggering the filter envelope. So you get your initial kick, your initial hit as you play it, and then they get re-triggered by the sequencer. And for the drum pattern, I'm using an arpeggiator to re-trigger samples, because you can't re-trigger samples on the Modwave, and using the D110 tech snare and the gated. So I'm using the D110 tech snare and a gated kick, and then I'm using the step sequencer to mute the kick, the snare on the offbeats. I've also got a bit of noise from the sub as well, just to give it a bit of movement. So when you put them together, so it gives you an interesting effect. And the other one which I had was a touch piano and Sawtooth on one layer, and the other layer I've got the Syn Lead and the Voxy Women. So we've got those sweeps coming in from the Voxy Women, and we've got the arpeggiator playing the Sawtooth and the touch piano. So that is my collection of the final set for the D110 for the Modwave. If you want to import them in, then you need to use the Korg Sample Editor. This is a sample builder. Download the zip file. In the zip file, you'll find a bank file, which you can go into your bank, open the bank, like I've done there. So you find that this is that. So you open the bank, and then you can send that bank down. That's empty at the moment because I haven't compiled it yet. Let's just find another one to show you. Okay, this is volume 1. So you open the bank like that, and then you can send that down. I've got it connected to the Wavestate, or you could choose Modwave and send that down. Now, if you're already using samples on your Modwave or Wavestate, that would erase the samples that are already on your machine, because each time you do a send bank, it clears out what's there and sends a fresh set. So what you can do is, and what I do is, I have a master set, which I call ID samples, and then so I have that, and I send that down. And then to add the ones that I've just provided, you can go to add multi-sample, browse for the multi-sample. So it could be like this one there, and then you can open that, and then you could go to the next one, and you could pick it all those multi-samples and then send those down like that. So that's how you send them down to your Modwave or Wavestate. I have got a whole video on doing this, so if you're not sure, check out that video. The procedure is exactly the same on the Wavestate as well. If you're using the plugin, it's slightly easier. You just do that save bank for plugin, and then in the plugin you can just and then if I open the plugin, I'll show you. In the plugin, you can just go to user banks, and you point it to where the folder where your user banks are that you've just created. So it's exactly the same principle as using the Modwave native one and the physical keyboard. Exactly the same procedures. It's just a slightly different way of working. So that's the final set for the D110. Really do appreciate you watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you like it. Let's thank Steve for sending me the D110. I've really enjoyed sampling that. I have got some other stuff to sample and bring some sets for. But if you've got any suggestions for videos or sound sets for the Modwave and Wavestate, please let me know. Leave a comment. I'll read all the comments, and I will certainly enjoy getting your feedback. Thanks for watching this video. Enjoy your Modwave. I'll see you on the next one.